Hurricane Milton may become a Category 5 storm by the time it hits the west coast of Florida on Wednesday. Let's talk about it. How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about Hurricane Milton hitting Florida on Wednesday, potentially as a Category 5 storm. Now, that is very devastating. That is the most powerful hurricane that there is. You're talking about massive storm surges, massive amounts of rain, wind, everything, possibly tornadoes. It's a lot going on with these hurricanes, and it's poised to hit on Wednesday. Now, there may be some rain in Florida as I speak because you get the outer bands of the hurricane that are far from the center. And today's Monday, October 7th, 2024, right around 12 noon. So as the day progresses, as you get closer to Wednesday, you'll see a deterioration in the weather. Now, $1 million question, what should I do? If you're living in Florida, you need to already be evacuating, in my humble opinion. If you know how hurricanes work in your area, if you have dealt with storms like this before, maybe you want to ride it out. I don't recommend that. It's talking about 8 to 12 foot storm surges, a lot of rain, a lot of wind, and you're not really in the mountainous area at all. You don't really have anywhere to go. It's going to go clean across the state, low-lying state with a lot of rain, a lot of wind. That's going to spell a problem, okay? But let's go ahead and look at this right here. You see the storm currently is a Category 5 off the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. Now, this area, you got Cancun, Tulum, Playa del Carmen on the East Coast. But right now, the storm is on the West Coast. However, there still may be some of the outer bands from the storm that hit the tourist areas on the East Coast of the Yucatan. All right. But you can see where it is right now. It's a Cat 5. And they're saying it's going to be a Cat 3 by the time it hits Florida, but some say it could remain a Category 5. Now, you see the winds. A Cat 5 when, I guess the floor for a Cat 5 is 157. So now you're at 160. That could become a lot worse, and I hope that it doesn't. Now, the good news is that it's not going to go to the north the way it did with Hurricane Helene. You see, with Helene, what happened was started in the Gulf, and then it cut up like right here, Tallahassee, and then Valdosta, South Georgia, through Atlanta, and then up here. You see where you got South Carolina, Tennessee, North Carolina. It hit right up in there in those mountains, which is the Appalachian, Southern Appalachian, some of the foothill areas. And it devastated it because you pretty much have like a bowl in the city areas, like at Nashville. It's like a bowl surrounded by higher elevation. So all the water just rushed straight down in the bowl. And there was massive flooding. May all those who were affected get well soon, get better, rebuild, and if you pass away, rest in peace. Prayers out to your family. Now, let's get to a news clip because this storm could be a lot worse than what some are thinking. If you're living in Florida, you're used to hurricanes. Oh, it's nothing. They always say it's going to be a big one. This one might be the big one, okay? Now, I hope my man right here is just being dramatic and it's not as bad as what he's saying, but listen to what he's talking about. And of course, I will link to everything I'm speaking about right now in the box. But without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
It's just an incredible, incredible, incredible hurricane. It has dropped. It has dropped 50 millibars in 10 hours.
Now, that's bad, what he's talking about. But what I'm seeing right here, it looks like two storm systems combining. Look, I'm no hurricane expert. I'm not a meteorologist or anything like that. I'm being from Virginia Beach, Norfolk. I grew up watching hurricanes. This is kind of what this looks like. But let me let him finish.
I apologize. This is just horrific. Maximum sustained winds are 160 miles per hour, and it is just gaining strength in the Gulf of Mexico, where you can imagine the winds. I mean, the seas are just so incredibly hot, record hot, as you might imagine. You know what's driving that. I don't need to tell you.
Here we go. Okay. Now I see why you're so dramatic. You're talking about climate change. Okay. That's what's making the hurricanes intense. All right, man. Look, hurricanes have always been a part of living on the East Coast of the United States. You living in Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, on up to as far as New York sometimes. But they call them nor'easters. Listen, this has always been the fact of life on the East Coast of the USA. Gulf Coast has always been an issue. You could even see how a lot of the land was formed by hurricanes out there over hundreds of thousands of years. This is not anything new, but I digress.
Global warming, climate change leading to this and becoming an increasing threat for the Yucatan, including Merida and Progreso and other areas there. Let's see if I can show you the latest. There's the Cat 5 information. Winds 160 miles per hour, moving east-southeast at 9 miles per hour. And on that track, you're going to notice that this system is going to come very, very close to the Yucatan. And the dirty side of this hurricane, folks, is on the right-hand side of its progress.
So that means right over here. And again, on the east coast of the Yucatan Peninsula, Cancun, Tulum, Playa del Carmen, all tourist areas, right up in there, right below this 160 Tuesday AM. That's right where all this stuff is at. So if you get any of the outer bands to reach down there, it's a wrap for the tourist areas, or at least there's going to be an issue with the weather. Again, I don't recommend you travel to Mexico in this particular region right now. And if you're there, they got to be with you. Try to evacuate.
So therefore, they're going to get the dirty side there. These communities, many of them, as you might imagine, many folks, in that area have just the very basics, nothing else but that. So it's going to be very tough. Now let's transition to Florida because even though it is expected to weaken on approach, it is so incredibly strong right now that you're going to find it very difficult for it to be nothing less than a major hurricane when it makes landfall in Florida. And where it makes landfall is going to be crucial because there and south of there, we're going to get a very high storm surge, which could be 12 feet deep. Now, the warnings and watches that you see on screen, there is a tropical storm watch for the Florida Keys.
Now, to be clear, storm surge, that's when you have water that rises to a certain level more than what it should, more than just more than what happened with the tide. So 12-foot storm surge in a place where the water is typically one. Okay, so let's say you live by a river, right? And it's always pretty much along the same level. You could kind of check it. You could see the high tide, low tide. You could see where it's at, and it doesn't really veer too much off of that level, that range. Storm surge, 12 foot is going to, whatever the range is going to be 12 foot higher. So if you got a riverbed and you can kind of measure it, okay, if the river is not 12 foot below the bed and it's like right at the bed, that 12 foot is going to be catastrophic.
There is a hurricane watch for much of the Florida coast, as you can see, and inland locations too, as this hurricane is expected to go that way. Keep in mind the impacts will extend beyond the cone of concern. What's fueling this intensification? Above normal sea surface temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico, including some really hot waters right there where it's at right now, and also additional hot waters that would be in the loop current in the Gulf of
It's like two systems. You can see it right here. You can see the big boy right there, but then there's like a separate one right there. It's like they're combining. That's kind of what's going on. Now, if that is what I think it is, that's even worse for the area. And you can see the track is going to go. You can see, what's that, a jet stream? You can see the track is going to go straight across right there. It won't go up this way.
From Mexico. But what is going to weaken it? Well, what would weaken it is a dip in the jet stream that's coming from the central section of the U.S. and diving towards the southeast. It is going to create upper level wind shear. It's also driving a cold front. The cold front would eventually absorb Milton and it would undergo an extratropical transition. It would become extratropical. What does that mean? It means that its wind field would expand. So as it crosses Florida, more sections of Florida are going to be affected.
So you can see the cone of concern, all of that out there, all of that, kind of olive color right there. And then the orange in the center. The orange is going to be where the most damage would be. But outside, you're still gonna have a lot of problems because there's gonna be a lot of wind and a lot of rain. So expect down power lines, localized flooding. But in the center, in the darker part, you're talking about serious flooding, serious winds, and possibly some tornadoes, because you get them hook echoes, what they call them. When you get a lot of wind, a lot of rain, you could get the hook echo. You could kind of see it. It's like a little hook when you're looking at the rain map. You can see a hook, and then if that's going on, now you got a tornado, now you got a problem. But as I close, I want to say this. If you are in the range of the hurricane, please be safe. If you're able to evacuate, I would suggest doing that. And you know kind of where you are. You in the low area where it floods. Listen, if it already flooded for Helene, and that wasn't really a direct hit, that was kind of a glancing blow because it went up through Tallahassee and then through Valdosta, like South Georgia. It went up that way. It didn't go Tampa, although Tampa did get some of the rain. If you guys were affected negatively by the outer bands, a direct hit, a Cat 3 at the least, maybe even a Cat 5 upon approach, and it has a wide wind cone, a wide cone of concern, meaning it could hit Tampa, closer to Miami, closer to Jacksonville. It could hit anywhere right there. But regardless, the whole state is going to be under it's going to be an emergency. And again, if you guys can evacuate, I would do so. If not, hunker down, be ready, be prepared, get food, water, toilet paper. You can skip on that. It really, you don't got to get all of that, but definitely get some basic supplies to survive for a little while because it might be an issue with this hurricane. But I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? Do you live in Florida? Do you live somewhere this hurricane could affect you? What have you done? What have you done to prepare? Have you evacuated? Have you gotten sandbags, plywood, whatever your thoughts are? Let me know in the comments below. You guys know where I'm at. This appears to be a pretty dangerous storm. Don't believe the hype about this whole global warming, climate change. That doesn't really matter. That's all BS and bogus. It's an agenda. What you got to focus on is just your personal safety and of your family. Beyond that, don't even worry about nothing. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.